Welcome to the Gals Guide to the Galaxy podcast, where a group of gals gather for you one cool thing around our topic of the month. Is it ancient history? Is it breaking news? Is it safe for work? Well, that's up to each gal. All we know is that...
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Welcome back. I'm Leah, and I am joined by Katie, Bonnie, and Rebecca talking about our one cool music thing. Bonnie already talked about Dusty Springfield, and I already talked about Gunhig Carling. But before we dive back in, let's get to know something random about our gal pals. I want to know, what is the best concert you have ever gone to? Dun, 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 dun. I will also accept worst concert, if that's easier.
Well, we were kind of talking about music for different periods of your life, music for different moods. I feel like that can apply to concerts, too.
Oh, totally.
Like, there's best in different categories.
Yep.
I'd say, for me, the best experience was just, like, really buying into the music, feeling the music, having an experience would be Murder by Death, which sounds hardcore, but it's based on a movie title.
Yep.
They're not that hardcore. They're actually an Indiana-based band that formed in Bloomington at IU, and they're incredible.
You played them for me, because I'm like, here's some Murder by Death, and I'm like, what are you talking about, Katie? You about to kill me? What's going on? And then I went, oh, I get it.
Yeah, they're incredible, and have an amazing, kick-ass female cello player.
Yeah.
So what is
So
their,
passionate.
like, what's their sound?
I want to say
Leah?
Mumford & Sons. I want to say hipster.
Okay.
Yeah.
See?
I mean,
I was going to say.
it's like unfair, but it's fair at the same time.
okay.
It goes, doop, 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 like, I don't know.
Like,
Sing it for us,
Bravo.
Katie. Like, meh, meh, meh. I
It's
don't
got
know
the,
any of
yeah,
this
it's got like a little bit of an uppy, yeah.
But then I would say for putting on an amazing show and engaging with their audience would have to be Devo.
Yes.
Yes, I'm talking about the band from the 80s with the flower pot hats. They go all in. There's movies, there's yellow suits, there's bouncy balls thrown into the crowd.
Oh, wow.
It's an amazing experience.
It's interactive, one would say.
One would say it was very interactive.
Hey, but we still listen. We still watch Devo YouTube videos once in a while. Like old, like my husband will like just pull up.
They're
like,
good.
The what is it? The
Whip It.
well, that one too.
Yeah.
But what's the?
We are
it's
not
from-
men, we are Devo.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it the Devolution?
Maybe that's a. I'll have to look it up.
I
'cause
was
it's
drugged
like,
there by a purer at heart fan than myself, but I have to say
Yeah.
their concerts are an experience.
See, you were brought in by somebody who then conformed you to the Devo. Now, did anything interesting happen at this concert? I say this because I know what happened. And it's a good ass story. Katie, what
Well,
happened?
I mean,
I'm saying as like a lawyer, maybe don't tell that story in a recordable, replayable,
in a recordable format sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's your story to tell. So.
oh, gotcha. Got you. Well, I'll just say we partied with the band afterwards.
There you go.
You can draw your own conclusions. Yeah.
Very nice. Yes, I like it. There you go. That's a fair assessment that I'm still very jealous of. I love it. Oh my gosh. Bonnie, do you have a favorite?
I don't know if I have a favorite.
Favorite or least favorite concert you've
A
gone
lot
to?
of concerts. Been to a couple Metallica.
Gotcha.
Some Catatonia.
I don't know
This is
Catatonia.
like a metal from like whatever it is.
Are you
Norway
in
or
the mosh
Sweden.
pit as
Well,
you're
I
going
grew
to
up.
these
I was
metal
another.
concerts?
I was a goth kid,
Look at
metalhead,
you.
whatever. I did Heart when they came to the State Fair.
Yes.
I'm wearing my Heart shirt because it's
Yes.
Music Month.
Look at that.
And they are
Beautiful.
coming to Indianapolis. I just saw in like a couple months with
Ooh.
I think LA it's Joan King. Jett.
With Joan Jett's coming back again?
Don't
yeah,
they
she
have-
was here last year.
It's three power ladies. Don't they also have LA King? I think so. That
Ooh.
sounds Let's right.
Oh,
go.
that
it sounds
could
like
be
a
a good show.
Gals Guide field
Oh,
trip.
I like it.
All the ladies.
That could be very cool.
Seen Here Come the Mummies a few times.
Awesome.
I really like them. I really shouldn't. As
Yeah.
like a feminist, I should not.
It's-
but it's just
they're-
so damn catchy.
Yes, exactly. Do you want to do your concert or do you want to,
Oh yeah,
me to
sure.
do
I'll
my
do
concert? Yes, which one?
I'll do concert. So
Sweet.
so this is recently. So I'm sure there are good concerts and bad concerts. I had a bad one I just thought of, but I don't want to mention it because someone was with me, and I don't want that person to think it was a
Right.
bad experience.
It was
because of
it was
that person.
definitely not going to be their
Because
fault.
it wasn't. It was
Right.
like it was stuff out of their control,
yeah.
out of anyone's control. But no. But recently I saw Gogo Bordello in town, and then I saw it with a good friend of mine who was also like really into them, and we got into talking, and I was like, I've seen them, I think like at least 3 times.
Oh.
And she's like, oh, I've seen them like 5 times. So they're just
Wow.
like, has anyone heard of them? Or
No.
So
I heard the name, but I don't.
So they're the way they brand themselves or self-identify, whatever you want to call it, it's gypsy punk. So they have like
I
it's kind of like a
blend.
it's kind of like a klezmer sound with like a lot of like Eastern European, Russian influence. Like
interesting.
they have like violins and accordions and drums and probably bagpipes, like kind of like you were talking
and like cymbals. I'm also guessing and bells.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
yeah, and they had and they used to have like. Oh, they used to have like these backup dancers, but I don't think they're in the band anymore. But anyway, it's like a big mix, and it's kind of like this. It's not. I wouldn't call it world. It's not world music, but they have like different people. Like when you look at the stage, you're like, okay, that person might be like Jamaican. That person's probably from.
It's eclectic and it's diverse. Yeah,
And the lead singer, he is Ukrainian.
Nice.
So then like when the whole. Not to be like Debbie Downer, but when the whole thing was going
Ukraine
on,
thing.
With Crimea a couple years ago or whatever, I was like, oh, I wonder what Eugene's thoughts are.
I know, right? Because is he a refugee at this point? Is he still like, is he home
and he's
going?
Very like political in his talk, so it's not like
it's part of him. Yeah,
it's part of what they are because he's Ukrainian. That's like a huge part of their identity.
A lot of musicians have their heart on their sleeve.
Yeah. And they were also the band in Everything Is Illuminated. So, like, they did some of the soundtrack. I don't think they did all of it because I have it. That pops up on Pandora sometimes. And it's like other bands did some of the music. But they did a couple of their songs. They have the song Start Wearing Purple. That's probably, like, their biggest hit.
Okay.
I've totally heard that.
Yeah. And I don't know if they have, like, I don't know if any of it's on the radio because I don't listen to the radio as much as I...
Radio is, that's the thing. It's like so many of it. We listen to streaming music. It's YouTube, it's Pandora, it's Spotify. I
was trying to figure out how I even heard of them because it's been, I know it's at least 10 years because I have, like, a t-shirt of theirs from like a promotion of a new CD that came out like in 2008 or 9.
Right.
So I've been into them for a long time, but
that's cool. They're still around too. You know what I mean?
Well,
like
this was like
some bands don't last that long.
Yeah. So this year was like this tour they're doing now is like I don't know if they're still. I assume they're still touring by the time this comes out, but it was like the 20th anniversary of the band.
Oh, nice.
And so they but they just have like a great like maybe that is someone that I think like who has like really like we talked about in the last episode, the passionate like. They're very like
they win you over.
Yeah.
Well, I've been thinking of a new question that I think that Leah should add in when she answers because I want to know.
Oh, okay.
Also, what was your first concert? I feel like that's such an experience.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I almost said mine is mine. So my first concert was the WOMAD tour in the early '90s. It was Peter Gabriel.
Ooh. I was gonna say when was it? What?
Hot House Flowers.
Okay, I don't know them.
Or Midnight Oil.
Too? Okay, gotcha.
Inner Circle, Bad Boys.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, I only know one song from Inner Circle.
That's the only one I know, but they were good. I saw them in their show. It was a really good. I mean, I probably was like, oh, it's like a concert, and it was at Deer Creek. I think Deer Creek was maybe kind of new.
Oh, okay. Back when it was new, before it was 7 other names.
Yeah. And I went with my mom.
Our local venue that we can never remember the name of.
And like, I'm pretty sure my mom is who I went with because I needed someone.
Of course.
I was like,
usually your first concert. I mean, it can be.
And I think I still have the t-shirt and a t-shirt.
Oh, wow.
Gosh, you guys are making me want to go to a concert. And being 35 now, I've kind of unofficially retired myself because I'm like, I can't.
Go to the lawn at White River. Go to the lawn at White River. It's
you
super
get space. Yeah. Because that's the thing. I'll spend the whole time leading up to the concert thinking about how I want to murder the people that are touching me or near me or breathing on me or standing in front of me. And then you get into it and you're fine.
Yeah. Right. It takes some time though. Yeah. My first one and my pick are going to be so like, it's bipolar.
Ooh, I love it. Tell us.
My first one was New Kids on the Block, y'all.
Ooh. Yeah, that's
Ice Baby.
Oh my god, it was.
I don't know. It's a classic.
I think I wanted to go.
It was embarrassing that it's embarrassing.
But see, I think I wanted to go to New Kids, and I was sad.
No,
they
it
came
was
back
when
just
they
recently.
It was, but when I saw them, they were new. You know who opened for them? Tiffany.
But she might have opened for. She wasn't.
Did she reopen? I don't know.
They had like a tour they came through, like you said, like
I have blocked shit out of New Kids on the Block. Like it comes on, I hear Hangin' Tough, and I'm like, nope.
I feel that way about Boys to Men. It makes me want to vomit on myself. I'm like, cannot.
I was really into it. Jordan was my god. Oh my god, it was horrible. Like
we all have our young girlhood years. We don't know yet.
So I didn't know. I just didn't know. So
know.
yeah, New Kids on the Block was my first concert. I went with my parents and my brother.
That's awesome.
It was horrible. But my favorite concert that I really, really liked, and I've been to a lot of really great concerts, but the one that I'm going to pick is I went and saw Green Day, and it was during their Dookie. It was Dookie. Yeah. So they weren't like, they weren't huge then. They were, on their way up. Like their songs were on the radio and stuff like that.
What was the venue where you saw it?
It was a small, intimate show. It was in Michigan.
Okay.
And I'm trying to even remember the name of it because it changed its name like 3 or 4 times is the other thing too. It was like the dance club on Fridays, and then it was the concert hall on Saturdays. And then it was like a bar during the week sort of thing. So, and I knew the bouncer, so that was awesome. But the Green Day show was one of those things where it's like, okay, I was in my punk phase. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go and see this new band that's kind of breaking through. And I like how they're pop punk. I really liked pop punk because I love the Ramones. And I felt like they were the closest to modern day Ramones. So I went to the show not knowing a whole bunch about them. And they won me over because they sounded better live than they did on their album. And that's what won me over. Like, they're a 3-piece harmony, actually, too, I think is a lot of things that people don't recognize about Green Day. All 3 of them are singing, and it's actually a 3-piece harmony. It's kind of like the Beach Boys and punk. It's odd, and it's better live. Like, what the hell? And it's amazing. And there's only 3 of them, too, and it's the sound of, like, 7 people.
See, that was
I love them, yeah.
That kind of reminds me of, maybe this would be my best, I don't know if it'd be my best, but I saw White Stripes. And it's
they are
just 2 of them.
There's 2 of them, and it's so much sound.
Just the 2 of them and their instruments, and I was blown away. I had I just wasn't thinking it would only be the 2 of them. I thought they'd have like a backup band. Right. I don't know, something.
It has to be weirdly mixed on the album. But no, it is. It's just the 2 of them, and it's a full sound.
Yeah. And I was so sad when they broke up because I was like,
I know.
But I was so glad I saw them, but I wish I could have gone again. So.
Oh, I'm totally with it. But that's why, but that's why Green Day won me over, and that's why usually my thought when it's any kind of concert is, are they better live than they are on the CD? Because if they're not, I'm just going to listen to the CD again.
Yeah. Are you going to get something out of it that you can't get just listening at home?
Exactly. Are they going to give me a fuller experience of music? Yeah. You know what I mean? Not just like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So that would be mine. So yeah, I mean, I guess they're both boy bands in a way.
Sucker for a boy band.
Yes.
Bonnie, what was your first concert?
My first, I was a very sheltered child. I didn't have my first concert until I was in high school, and I don't think my parents still wanted me to go. I was Metallica. It was 2000, the Saint Anger tour.
Well, I mean, at that point, people were getting hurt at Metallica shows or just heavy metal shows. So, I mean, as a parent, Bonnie, I'm worried about you. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. No, your first one was Metallica. Your first that's a serious concert right there.
That's pretty badass, Bonnie.
It was down at Conseco, I think.
Major.
I think it was the RCA Dome.
Gotcha.
I don't think it was that.
It was a stadium show, basically. Yeah. Though. Yeah.
Up in that, we were in like the front row of like the balcony or whatever. Yes. I think I remember screaming that I love Kirk.
Where you
totally heard it.
Who did you go?
You totally heard it. Yes.
Who did you go with?
I think I went with. I think my parents dropped me off a friend of mine. I don't remember if it was Monica or Kristen. It was just like some.
So
friend
you had
that
you had a buddy with you. Yeah. It wasn't like just you and.
Sweet.
Yeah. Awesome.
Dang it.
Well, I separate.
Yes. Oh, yes. Right.
I have to share mine.
Yes, no, please. By all
That's
means,
the only
absolutely.
reason you ask people questions, right? Because you want to tell your answer.
Yes. I like it. Yes.
I separate mine into 2 categories. So I claim my very first real concert was when I was 18.
Okay.
Going away to college. However, I had gone to perhaps a lot of Christian concerts in my earlier days, but one does not recognize that.
Gotcha. You didn't
choose
to go to that?
It doesn't count. That's like some kind of culty thing, not a self-choice.
If you didn't choose it and be like, please, Mom, Dad, I need to buy these tickets.
I'm just going full in. Maybe these margaritas, but my very first concert, and it totally has developed something that I like to this day.
Yeah.
And it's pervy, guys.
Sweet. Bring it.
First concert was Tom Petty at Deer Creek.
Oh!
Yeah.
I saw Tom Petty.
Yeah.
I was in the Mary Jane section of a Tom Petty concert once. Yes.
Oh, I think that's the whole place.
It is kind of.
Was it maybe we talked about this. Did you see him at Market Square Arena?
No. It was in Detroit.
Oh,
Yeah,
I saw him at Market Square
Detroit.
Arena when I was like in high school.
What phase was Tom Petty in? Was he was it Mary Jane's Last Dance, or was it like Full Moon Fever? I need to picture it in my head.
You know me and names.
Yeah, true.
But let me tell you, it was 2002.
Okay, all right, okay.
Where are we
so
at
it was
with that?
more recent-ish.
Yeah,
okay,
it was. So he was quite old,
right, and greatest
but
hits.
still incredibly sexy.
Oh, he's good,
right?
No, he was. Yeah,
and
yeah.
I learned I'm a sucker for a rolled up dress shirt,
Yes.
like the long sleeves are rolled up, and then there's a watch.
That's what does it.
Yeah.
How did you?
What is
you
that?
didn't-
Not
you were
everybody?
Not born, wait, how did you not get through the 80s? I'm just thinking Miami Vice.
Well,
She's a little younger.
I was
Maybe
going to say
that's what
I
it is.
peaked at 7 in the 80s. I don't think I had a
Yeah.
lot of boy interest.
There you go.
I
I'm
would've been-
thinking,
Especially grown man TV boys.
I'm thinking that's the
ew.
influence, is what it is. You saw some Don Johnson there, and you went, you know what? When I'm older,
No, it was
I'm gonna
Tom
get
Petty.
me. I'm gonna get me some of that. Is Tom Petty?
It was Tom Petty, man.
Got it.
Yeah, I would have been in so much trouble if I was a teenager in the 80s with all those guys in the rock bands with the long hair
Oh,
and
yes.
leather pants. I would be in so much trouble.
Have you seen the Netflix, the Motley Crue movie?
Oh, I didn't watch it.
No.
'Cause I don't like Motley Crue, but yeah, but
I
there's a
don't
Motley
either,
Crue movie.
But I
Yeah,
want to see the movie.
I told Josh, I'm like, you watch it, you tell me all about it.
I listen to Nikki Sixx's radio show sometimes.
See?
I don't really like if it's on the radio and I'm
Yeah,
driving somewhere.
exactly.
It's not like I'm seeking it out on my phone or anything. But I don't know. But it looks good. I'll report back if I ever watch it.
There you go. I heard good things.
Yeah,
I heard good things. And I'm
too.
like, oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Because it's like over the top, and it's like a couple of the guys, well, they're still around.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
ones
yeah.
that are still
Oh,
around,
totally.
I think, were somehow involved in like the creative process in some way.
I think basically they heard what was happening with Bohemian Rhapsody and they went, I want a piece of that. Is
Yeah.
basically what my thinking is. And
And I
I'm like,
wanna
oh
be
yeah, you
on
do Motley
Netflix.
Crue.
I want to be on Netflix, so everybody's gonna have to watch it now, and it's gonna be in their face every time they open up their whatever.
Exactly. Well, especially for the week that it's premiered, yeah.
Yeah, it just came out whenever it came out, a few weeks ago, I think, or maybe a couple months ago at this point.
See? Well, what is your one cool thing, girl?
So my one cool thing is Nico.
Yay!
And she, I guess the quick and dirty version, she was a singer on Velvet Underground's album.
Yes. Hence, Rebecca is wearing the
Oh,
shirt,
you
listeners.
You can't see because this is obviously
because
not
it's a
video.
podcast, y'all.
It's a podcast. But I'm wearing my Velvet Underground t-shirt today.
Yes.
With the Andy Warhol banana. And I actually own a re-release that I was listening to last night, but it was kind of skipping, so I need to figure out if I think it's my record player is like unbalanced. Or
Oh,
something.
it happens.
But her real name is, but there's so much more to her than just that album, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Her real name is Krista Pafgen. I can't remember how to pronounce it or not, so please forgive me if that's wrong.
I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
I believe you.
And I just like watched a documentary about it, and they say her real name. So, but yeah, so she was born in Cologne before World War II, so October 16th, 1938.
She's born in Cologne?
Mhm,
Wow.
Germany. And the story
Ah.
goes that her dad, I think, just kind of disappeared under mysterious circumstances during the war.
Oh.
So, and I was listening to a podcast on the way over here where they just talked about the album, and they talked a little bit about her, and they were saying that like when they first found her, which I'll get to that in a second, they were like, well, they think she was from here. So and the podcast made it sound like her background was kind of this secret, but I don't know, because everything I looked for said Cologne and the birth date. So I'm
Right.
going to assume that's accurate enough. And then after World War II, I think it was 1946, she moved to Berlin with her mom,
Gotcha.
and was in Berlin and I think Brandenburg, Germany for a while. Then she ended up in her mid-teens, became a model,
Mhm.
and then ultimately she flashback to one of our previous episodes. She got a deal with Coco Chanel.
Yeah.
But she didn't actually do that job. She moved to New York instead. And she was 17 at that time. So
Interesting.
when she was pretty young, she was clearly exposed to a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
Moves to New York, starts taking some acting classes in the 50s. By the late 50s, she in 1959 she played herself in La Dolce Vita. She'd been in a couple other
okay.
movies too by that point, but
Gotcha.
that was and the story goes that she showed up on set, and by this point she was kind of known as like a model,
Mhm.
actress, etc. And I guess Federico Fellini was like, hey, let's get her in this movie somehow.
Right.
So it wasn't like a role.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, oh, that doesn't sound too far off from other things that he would have said.
Exactly.
Or done at that point.
Fellini kind of likes the model type. if we
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And let me find in my notes, because at some point she lands in the Andy Warhol.
Yeah, she's in the
universe.
Warhol factory, basically,
Factory.
because she.
Right. So
That's how I first was introduced by her. Yeah.
Right. So he finds out about her, but she ends up. So some of Andy Warhol's people are at a recording or at a concert for Velvet Underground in New York, and they go back and they tell Andy about it. Andy, Mr. Warhol.
I know.
Mr. Warhol.
I think they called him Andy too, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if they. And so they decide that and I see too. She was also in. So she had some other acting credits, including a movie called Striptease, where she wrote a song, or she recorded a song written by Serge Gainsbourg.
Yeah.
And that song wasn't released till 2001, which is in Serge Gainsbourg. And whoever doesn't know who he is, he was kind of like I don't know, would he be like the Frank Sinatra of France? Maybe?
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, I'm like, I can't place.
He's like a crooner type.
Okay. Like a
singer.
French crooner.
Yeah,
Okay.
but like
All right,
really
then.
well known
Okay.
for a French. I wish I didn't.
I mean, of my French crooners, I don't know that
Yeah.
many. So.
And I don't want to click on him and go down that rabbit hole, but basically, anyway, so she had some so I'm just saying, like, she did more before the Andy Warhol
Yes.
era.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like on her own, she was doing some, she was singing. And
They found her.
Yeah. She sang in 1965. She met Rolling Stones guitarist Brian Jones and did her first single.
Oh, Brian Jones.
And it was produced by Jimmy Page. So she was like art. So again,
Wow.
she was doing some big stuff before she got into.
That is surprising that she landed with the Velvet Underground with all of those other players in the mix.
But maybe that goes back, because at some point, I don't know if it was in a recording or some point today, we were talking about how people just like, you get to where you are by doing the work.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like she was doing the work. Like she wanted to be an actress or a singer or whatever. And she was going to acting school. She was singing, she was getting gigs and singing with people. And and I think Andy Warhol, I don't think he was just randomly discovering people as much as it probably, I think that's what he wanted people to
I think he was curating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he was looking at what was out there and what was around and what was being brought to him. And then he was like, I shall showcase this.
Right.
Yeah.
And in New York in the 60s, I don't know, was as big like on the music scene, because you had like San Francisco and London and other bigger scenes, and like the Motown we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Like other scenes were going on. I don't know how big New York scene was.
Until you get to the Dolls and the punk rock scene and CBGBs and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think the Velvet Underground, I think they were kind of like, or I wouldn't say I think, I'm going to say they were right on that cusp of something needed to kind of come out of that. And
they were burgeoning a New York sound. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And they were like this artsy, like I just listened to, I'll give you like a link. There's this podcast I listened to that was really good, where they just like basically just break down the whole album and talk about why they think this is like the best album ever, pretty much, because they just had a 50th anniversary, so that's the podcast is about a year old. But
I will say it's a damn good album. I don't know if I'll go it's the best of us, but it's a damn good album.
So they were saying it's good in the sense that it's influential.
Absolutely.
Like they said, like each song probably influenced at least one era of rock. So like there's like Venus and Fur is like a goth probably came from that, right? Or there's like a couple of songs that you could probably, like the Ramones. Probably picked up some stuff from it, or
Talking Heads, or
Radiohead, or maybe even Green Day. Like a lot of bands, just like they said, they're like, it might not have done that well commercially, but because all
music people got
it. Music people like picked it up and then decided to start bands because of the music. And so it's I'll send you. I wish I could remember. The podcast, it's like a WBEZ Chicago NPR.
Oh, nice.
So it's like a real podcast.
Yeah,
I
figured it was. Yeah.
But yeah, so then she ended up with Andy Warhol at some point in all this. And he finds out about Velvet Underground. And then he is like, hey, Velvet Underground, I'm going to finance you. And we're going to make an album. And we're going to do this, this, and this. Oh, by the way, I want you to put Nico in your band.
Right.
So she wasn't like organically part of the band. It was like a first. Yeah. But they didn't want to say no because he was going to give them money when they didn't really have it to make their album. But then And what
he had influence.
Yeah. And then like what the music critics said in their podcast was ultimately they did come to have a friendship with her, and it was fine. You know, everything like worked out well, and they had like when she ended up doing some solo stuff after this album, they Lou Reed and one of the other band members also like worked with her on some of her solo stuff. So it wasn't
it
like,
always seemed like it was that it
was,
became
more like mutual.
They became a friendship. Yeah, exactly.
But at first it was probably not great, and they called her like the Ice Queen and all this stuff, and so that kind of brings me to
she was very German. She's very it's the sensibility to a certain extent.
There's that, but I think too it goes to the whole like who is telling the story.
True.
So if it's like so we'll like kind of fast forward and then go back again. But she passed away July 18, 1988, which is my birthday. Not my actual birthday.
Gotcha.
But July 18 is my birthday.
Yeah.
And so she was only 49 when she passed away. She
Goodness.
like had a stroke when she was riding her bike in Ibiza.
Oh, that's
goodness.
right. I remember this story now that you say it. Yeah.
So it's just such a weird way to like
tragic.
She also,
out of nowhere.
She also had some drug issues
and
addiction.
I mean, like you do in New York
like
punk
you do
scene.
in New York when you're in the Velvet Underground.
Pretty much.
Exposed to all the stuff they sing about. That's
right.
not anything.
All the drugs.
Yeah, that's nothing. That's no secret there. They have a song called Heroin. And,
hell yeah.
And I'm Waiting on the Man.
That's damn good songs,
I know.
though.
I think that's like my favorite drug dealer theme song ever. Yes. And I've even mentioned that to people. Like when I wear the shirt, that comes up sometimes. David Bowie did a cover. You know, it's a lot of there's a lot of good things about that. But she what was I saying? Oh, so it seems like a lot of her story, like I don't know how much of her story she got to tell.
Right, because she died so young.
Because she died so young, but she maybe was thinking about doing some kind of retrospective or memoir or something. I don't think she did though, because I know like so after the Velvet Underground, she did some other stuff. She wanted to do some solo stuff. She has the album Chelsea Girls, which is like one of my favorites, and that's how I ended up wanting to do her as my person. And I listened to that a lot when I was in law school and sitting for the bar. And that's also one of the songs like a lot of the songs on that album I'll listen to if like I'm having like a bad day.
Right.
And it's just like kind of like it's not necessarily like the lyrics aren't it's kind of like the Smiths, like the lyrics aren't necessarily uplifting.
Right.
But like if I listen to it, that like gets me into like a better place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it just kind of like it's a gradient to kind of like bring you from the sad to a little bit better.
Yeah, like
it's not a full blown happy, but it's like all right.
Yeah, like some of her lyrics, like I would just like sing over and over to kind of like not over and over.
It's a
like,
meditation almost.
Yeah, definitely. Like I can listen, like I was listening to it again this morning to kind of like not remind myself that I like her, but just kind of get
in the zone.
Yeah, like it's the one I can listen to like anytime. It's kind of like you were saying, it's kind of like Katie was saying, it's like good, like kind of like maybe just like background music. It's kind of like mellow and chill. Some of it gets a little weird, so I skip through the weirdness. Like
it's also very good to write to as well, in the sense of I
don't have to focus too much because like not just because I know it, but because of how it sounds. So yeah, and they only had I guess I never even thought about this, but they only had the one album as Velvet Underground.
I know.
And that was it. And then they ended, but then like of course like Lou Reed did his whole
He
career.
went solo. Yeah, exactly. And I didn't the other band members like everybody kept playing
did
music.
Something in music.
But the Velvet Underground, they had the one good. They were the Sex Pistols of New York. Yeah, they had one album and then bang.
that one like huge big hit, and that was, or not even it wasn't even a hit then, but like one influential thing that they did. And then she so I'm just kind of like reading from notes. So like for her debut album, so Chelsea Girl came out in 1967.
Gotcha. Did she have more than one album or just the one? Because I was only
she had like 6 or 7.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, now I feel bad.
No, and I didn't know this either.
Okay, all right.
I only
where
have
did they come
so Chelsea Girl's the only album I have.
Right.
Of hers.
Yeah.
But she had some other albums. She had some albums through like 70s and 80s.
Nice.
I don't know if she did albums into the 80s. I'm looking to see. At least into the 70s. She toured a lot in the 70s and especially in the 80s.
Did her sound always stay the same?
It was
new wave, punkish, soulful, or I didn't know if like with 70s and 80s if she went into like synth pop or she went into disco or she became Blondie. You know what I'm saying? Like Blondie started changing with every decade that they were in, sort of thing.
Yeah. So I'm looking through.
She didn't have a rap album. I'm sorry.
No. She didn't like do like a Run DMC, Aerosmith.
She doesn't seem like she would be the type, but
she
also
didn't
at
do
the
like
same
a
time,
Walk
like
This Way type
her musical
video, and they
musicality.
bust through the wall in their Adidas sneakers or whatever.
She didn't have a country album, like Bob Dylan suddenly had a country album and then a Christian album. Okay.
I wish I knew because I just haven't like listened to her other.
Oh, that's fair. I'm just learning she had more than one album.
Yeah,
like I knew she
that's
sang
what
with Velvet Underground
like-
and then had a solo album, like
so
end of list.
So I did read somewhere that there were some things they did on her Chelsea Girls album that she didn't like. Like she wanted
producing
like,
of it, the mix.
like she wanted like more guitars, and she's like, "Let me put flutes in it." I'm like, "But I like this. I like the way it turned out." So I don't know how. Then I had some feelings
yeah,
about that.
right.
Like, okay, was that make me bad because I like what she didn't like? But
right.
she so her newer stuff, her later stuff might have been more in line like with what she wanted to do. And one of the things I thought that was interesting, so I was kind of saying earlier, like she a lot of this is like, she was called the Ice Queen, but then like later when people were saying they got to know her, they're like, no, she's not. No, not really. Like that was just what they wanted. That was like the kind of the Andy Warhol, Velvet Underground, whatever.
That was the persona
they wanted her to have.
Right.
But then, so then when she started like doing her own thing, because she was like model, so she was like beautiful, thin, blonde, and then as she got older, she like started like putting on weight and not caring about her appearance, and but that to her was freeing because then she didn't have all these other people telling her what she needed to do anymore, so she would do her own thing. But she still was having her drug issues. She still had
drugs are hard to quit, man.
Yeah, she still had some other stuff
right
going on that didn't just go away just because she was because she didn't have the handlers or whatever. And I guess there were some crazy stories. So there are a couple documentaries. One is Nico Icon, which I am pretty sure is on YouTube. I don't know how legal that is, but
right, exactly. If it's up in the up and up, but yeah.
And there's a I think it was a Pitchfork article I found, so I'll give that to you to put on the website.
No, absolutely. Put it in the show notes.
That has like a link to the Nico Icon, and it talks to you about there's a movie called Nico 1988, which is about like her last year of touring. And because in I watched a little bit of the Nico Icon one, and they talked about like the guy that toured with her that wrote the book that I guess like the movie's based on or whatever. He's like, oh yeah, the first time I met her, she was in the bathroom and she was there for like 30 minutes, and someone told me, and I didn't realize, like, he didn't make the connection of who she was because it was like in the early 80s, and so she wasn't quite as famous. But she was still
I would
famous.
know her from her voice, not her face. You know what I mean? That's the thing. Yeah.
But and she, like I said, like she changed. I think she even like dyed her hair was either naturally brown or she dyed it brown. You know, like she kind of went through some like physical changes too. But anyway, so then so his version of the story was that she was probably in there doing heroin.
Gotcha.
But then like there's another version of the story.
It could have been cocaine. Oh, sorry, I'm just playing.
Well, there's another version of the story that she was actually in there like recording ambient sound. Because that was something she would do because I guess she would do that even as a kid because
Prince did that too. Yeah.
Something to do with like because she was growing up like in the midst of World War II. But she was like trying to record like
London.
war sounds. And maybe it was like after the war. I don't know. Like it was just, so that I thought was really interesting.
That is interesting.
So it wasn't like she was just singing and making music. She was also like interested in sound. But that kind of makes sense.
And almost maybe therapy.
Maybe, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like working through like it's a process or something.
Like trying to, that was like her thing. So whether she was in the bathroom recording ambient sound or doing heroin or maybe both.
Why can't it be both?
I don't know. Yeah, it could be 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
You know, people like to multitask. And,
that could be a way.
She could also have been going to the bathroom.
She also, what?
Yeah, and she might have just been in there for, so, let me see. I know she had a son at one point. I don't know. I didn't get a whole lot about her personal. I'm sure that's all out there somewhere. But she had a son at one point, and I think he was still alive when she passed away. I don't know if he's still alive today.
Did she stay in America, or did she like go back to Germany?
She went to Manchester, England.
All right.
So she was there for a while, and then I think she kind of like bounced around.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean that sounds like a musician kind of, musician artsy life, model life too.
Yeah. And So yeah, that's why when you say like, oh, what was her music? I'm like, well, she was in Manchester in the 80s. So
I know, right?
Kind of.
It could have been much of anything at that point.
It could have been some new wavy type stuff. Yeah, it says in the 80s she moved between London and Manchester, so she, I guess, stayed in England after kind of her fame. But she toured. I'm pretty sure she toured in the U.S. and other places in the 80s, and I don't know if it was a way to make money or I think she liked performing and making music.
I think you have to love it at the same time.
Yeah.
People can tell you like, oh, you can make money doing it, but at the same time, big part of the decision is, do you want to get out there and be in front of people and perform again?
And I don't know that she was that well received in her later stuff. So it could have been people going to see her because they wanted to see like what she was like 20 years after.
Voyeurism, yeah.
Yeah, or if they really liked her music. Because there was something I read where someone said, oh, we should make like a live concert album of her. And someone's like, oh, with all the heckling in it? So that sounds bad. And I don't know if but again, that could just
anybody.
That could be like one person's lens.
Right,
it might not have been that bad. It might have been they went to like one show and it had like a bad thing.
It had that one guy.
It's always that one guy.
I know. So
Play some Scanner. That guy.
Okay, so in her personal life, she had an affair with French actor. This is according to Wikipedia, so take it with what it's
right,
worth.
Exactly.
Alain Delon, and from this relationship bore a son on August 11, 1962. So that was before the Velvet Underground album.
Gotcha.
Who she called Ari. The actor denied paternity, and she had difficulty raising him. So the boy was raised by the dad's parents, even though the dad said he wasn't.
Right, exactly.
So the paternal grandparents looks like raised her child. It says he became a photographer and actor, and he had a son in 1999. So I guess I assume he's still kind of around. It says she was a heroin addict for over 15 years.
Oof. Oh, that's tough on a body.
Yeah.
Ow.
Yeah. But at some point she started methadone replacement therapy. So,
gotcha.
And that's what, and it says regimen of bicycle exercise and healthy eating. So that's probably why she was riding her bike and trying to be more active and healthy. And
right.
And then but just as shortly before her death, so I don't know how long. And this is problematic. Says was described by some friends and colleagues as racist.
Oh no!
So, maybe if I'd seen that prior to choosing her, I would have chosen her. But
right.
But it's kind of says it goes on.
I didn't
with
know.
Her being German.
Gotcha.
So let's take that for what that's worth. But yeah, I guess we've talked about problematic people on here before.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that's not.
That's the thing. We get to be complicated people.
Yeah, and she was, and I hate to say like, oh, she was a different era, so that's not excusing it, but again, like I said, she was 49 when she passed away. She might have said something in like her early, in her teen years,
right?
And because she was already on the path to fame and fortune or whatever, she might have become. People might have already been recording what she was saying, so I'm not sure like when she said.
Right, exactly. And how high she was at the time. I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying a 15-year heroin problem.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Or what was going on in her life that made her say or do things that made people make those claims about her. And again, like I've been saying kind of throughout the theme is like it's hard to know how much of her own story she's told versus other people telling it for her.
Yeah, that's always fair.
Yeah. But I think the Nico 1988 one, because it's more recent, I think that's supposed to be a more even-handed telling of her life story. That
kind of fair assessment.
Yeah, so I definitely want to. So now I do want to check that out to see if I can find it and see what it has to say about her. And
so if anybody wants to explore more on Nico, there are different options out there.
Yeah.
Learn more about her. Well, that wraps it up for us. Wait, did I open it?
Yeah.
I did open it, didn't I? I all of a sudden had a total brain fart hesitation there. Well, that wraps it up for us this week. Join us next week as our next gal pal shares her one cool thing on Gal's Guide to the Galaxy podcast continues. Thanks for listening. For show notes, links, and images from this week's show, visit galsguide.org. Want exclusive stuff like deleted bits and major bloopers? Become a Gal's Guide patron today. Thanks for listening.